Hey everybody, welcome to a Thursday edition of 5 Minutes with Phil. Glad that you're here to join me here today. Again, I hope your week is going well, and I think we're going to have a really good look at God's Word here together this morning. Speaking of that, let's jump into it, okay? On this Thursday, we're going to look at 2 Corinthians. This is the second letter that Paul wrote to the church in Corinth. And we are in the first chapter, and we're going to take a look at verse 9 and 10. And Paul's kind of given a little bit of a backstory as to what his life and his ministry have been about. And it's been very interesting to see what Paul had to say here, because as Paul's kind of given his backstory, there, I think, is a lot that we can learn from this passage of Scripture. Take a look and let's see what I am talking about. 2 Corinthians verse 9 of chapter 1. Here we go. And in fact, it says, "In fact, we expected to die." That's a rough way to start. Let's keep going. "But as a result, we stopped relying on ourselves, and we learned to rely only on God, who raises the dead. And he did rescue us from mortal danger, and he will rescue us again. We have placed our confidence in him, and he will continue to rescue us." I like that a lot. He will continue to rescue us. There's this confidence that Paul had that even though his circumstances were bad, and let's be honest, okay? Paul went through a lot of stuff. I mean, if you read the Bible, if you read the New Testament, the guy was nearly stoned to death. The guy was beaten. He had angry mobs come after him. He was imprisoned. He was shipwrecked. I mean, Paul went through a lot. He went through a whole lot in his life. And he is saying here, look, being dedicated to God is not going to absolve me from rough times, okay? It's going to happen. I'm going to go through some tough stuff. But he was reminded, and I love this, he kind of threw this in here, so you might be tempted to miss it. But he says, we stopped relying on ourselves, and we learned to rely only on God, who raises the dead. Now, this is kind of what I want to hit here today. Who do we rely on when times get rough? Oftentimes we rely on ourselves. Oftentimes we rely on what we can do and how much power we have and what we are capable of doing. We rely very much on whatever it is that we can pull off, maybe on our willpower, maybe on our charisma, maybe on our work ethic. And Paul, who, by the way, had a lot of good things going for him, okay? Paul says, look, we had to rely on God and not ourselves. And then he reminds the readers, and I think he also reminds himself, so let's not get too far here. But he reminds the readers, us, and he reminds himself that God is the one he relies on, and he raises the dead. Now, that's significant, because if you need to rely on somebody, then let it be somebody who is able to raise the dead. Okay? That makes sense. If I know somebody who's able to raise the dead, no matter what, I'm going to rely on him. Thing is, there's only one person who could do that, and that's God. That's God. And you may have a lot going for you, and that's awesome. But please, can I remind you today that no matter what you're facing and no matter what you're going through, this is a time to remember who God is and remember what he can do. He is a God that could do anything, including even raising the dead, which nobody else can do. So who else am I going to rely on? I got to depend on God. I got to trust in God. I got to put all of my issues and all of my problems, I got to put them in God's hands and lay them at his feet instead of relying on what I can do. So I want to challenge you today. Rely on God more than yourself. And remember, this is the same God who raises the dead. He could certainly get you through whatever it is that you're facing. Okay, got to let you go. Thanks for joining me. We love you. Lord willing, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.